Elena Mirza believed the ocean would rinse every stubborn ember of yesterday from her skin. That was why she drove, alone and without farewell, to a wind-raked peninsula forgotten by tourists and almost everyone else. The cottage she rented stood on a rise where gulls outscreamed the restless surf, and the realtor had praised it as a writer's retreat. Elena called it an unlisted address for a woman who no longer wished to be found. She unpacked little. Blank notebooks, a chipped coffee press, one photograph of Istanbul turned face down, and a single bottle of wine meant for the day she finally felt new. The first morning, fog pressed against the window panes like curious hands. She parted the curtains just as a removal truck hopped into the drive next door. Until that moment she had imagined she owned the entire horizon. Now steel doors banged, cardboard scraped, and unfamiliar footsteps mapped the silence she had purchased with her loneliness. She held her breath, half annoyed, half intrigued, while a tall man stepped from the truck. Rain darkened his hair and carved quick rivers down his jacket. He turned slightly, revealing a profile Elena had memorized. Once in another life, the steady line of his jaw, the faint scar beside his left brow, the suggestion of softness behind guarded eyes. No amount of coastline could blur a memory that vivid. Her pulse flared in warning. 8 years had passed since their names had appeared side by side beneath a newspaper expose that toppled a minister and littered 2 careers with threats. 8 years since she fled Ankara carrying only a hard drive of evidence and the taste of a goodbye kiss interrupted by sirens. Adam Kaya was supposed to be in South America, maybe Scandinavia, anywhere but here. Yet there he was, alive and unpacking. Boxes only a garden wall away. Elena retreated from the window as though it burned. She tried to busy herself with shelving notebooks, but every whisper of cardboard outside felt like a deliberate echo of the crates they once smuggled through newsroom corridors in the dark. By midday, she abandoned pretense and slipped into the garden, pruning a bedraggled rosebush that clearly preferred abandonment. Sea wind tangled her hair and salted her lips. Over the wall came a scent she had not smelled since Istanbul summers, spiced orange mingling with cedar. It carried her back to nights when rolling blackouts forced her and Adam to draft revelations by candlelight, the air sticky with adrenaline and cigarette smoke, their shoulders brushing whenever they leaned in to edit another incendiary paragraph. She nicked her thumb on a thorn. A bead of blood shivered. Even that bright sting seemed familiar, as though the garden conspired to prove history never ends, it only changes scenery. She sensed more than saw him pause beyond the gate. The space between them tightened, heavy with unspoken recognition. Elena straightened but did not turn. She told herself she would not cross the wall, would not let nostalgia masquerade as fate. Instead, she went inside, pressed her cut beneath the faucet, and watched red swirl down the drain. Dusk crept in early. Coastal power lines surrendered to the first true storm of the season, plunging every cottage into velvet darkness. Elena lit 3 candles, grateful to have rehearsed solitude. Rain hammered the roof with percussive urgency. Somewhere beyond the gale, a vinyl record crackled to life. Aznavour's soft lament, the very song she and Adam once called their accidental anthem. It drifted through distance and thunder until it leaked beneath her door like contraband. Light. Her heart answered each lyric with traitorous warmth. When the knock came, it was measured and patient, as if the visitor already understood boundaries had kept her alive this long. Elena opened the back door an inch. Candle, light spilled onto the threshold, illuminating Adam's rain-soaked figure. He held a small tin of pistachio cookies, those buttery half-moons she adored and thought she would never taste again. Except in memory. His presence was a confession, his cautious smile an apology for the violence past choices exact. Loneliness can wield more power than fear. Elena stepped aside and he entered, careful not to trip on the woven rug. They sat across a scarred farmhouse table, the lantern between them flickering like a heartbeat neither fully trusted. Conversation skirted safe terrain, the storm, the price of fish in the harbor, how salt air corrodes hinges faster than city smog. Yet under each sentence thrummed the larger question of why a man would chase a coastline rumor just to occupy the cottage beside the only woman. Who had ever believed? His darkest stories. Elena studied the way rainwater clung to his lashes until it was carried away by a slow blink. She remembered hiding with him in a ventilation shaft while soldiers ransacked their newsroom, recalled the taste of fear and coffee grounds on his lips when silence settled afterward. 8 years of exile had not dulled these frames. They lived inside her with the precision of film reels, each moment ready to project across any blank wall. The lantern popped, flame stretching tall, and in that sudden flare she saw longing mirrored in his eyes. It felt reckless and unsanctioned, like printing a headline before a fact check. Before the silence thickened, the power surged back, hissing the refrigerator awake and bleaching the room in blunt light. The spell broke. They rose in unison, embarrassed not by what had happened, but by what almost had. Adam left the cookie tin and stepped into the dwindling storm with the promise of clear skies by morning. Elena watched his silhouette fade, then poured a glass of wine meant for triumphs and listened to the surf rehearse ruin against the cliffs. Sleep came fitful, setting her adrift on flashbacks until dawn unclenched its gray fist. She brewed coffee strong, enough to anchor fragile resolve and open the door to retrieve the sea-salted air, and found a brown envelope resting on the mat. No postage, no introduction, only her long-abandoned newsroom nickname printed and deliberate. Ink, Lini. Inside lay a single photograph. Istanbul's waterfront at violet dusk, 2 silhouettes shoulder to shoulder. Adam's handwriting on the back reminded her that not every story survived long enough to be told, but some still whispered through history's static if one dared to listen. She pressed the image to her chest, the paper thin yet heavy with all they had not finished. Determined to reclaim control, Elena crossed the gravel path to his porch. Boxes crowded the foyer beyond the window, but no footsteps answered her knock. A tulip bulb balanced on a sill ironic and intimate, because she once mused aloud that tulips looked like the earth's unshed tears. She turned away, colliding with him at the stair as he returned from an early run, breath clouding in the chilly air. Neither spoke as he noticed the photograph trembling between her fingers. The beach waited below like an unrolled scroll, the tide never finished writing. He asked for a walk, a chance to let the wind speak first. She agreed, uncertain whether. The yes she granted belonged to curiosity, unfinished love, or something newer that had no name yet. Their footsteps trailed the wet sand, parallel but never quite touching, while the morning sun tried to burn through a sky still haunted by storm dot. Each wave they passed whispered recursion. Rush forward, pull back, rush again. Elena wondered whether that was all the past truly did, imitate water, relentless in its need to return. Next to her, Adam stayed silent, but the way his shoulders angled toward her suggested an argument with destiny. She felt the old story stirring, the one they once tried to end with an expose and a kiss, the one that refused to conclude. Dot above them, gulls circled, shrieking like restive hinges. And Elena tasted iron on the breeze, perhaps only memory of last night's thorn, perhaps warning of deeper cuts to come. She realized escape was never a location. It was a choice repeated until it printed itself across the soul. And choices, she understood now, cannot be erased by geography. They wait, patient as secrets, ready to move in next door when the horizon finally looks safe. Elena and Adam walked the gray shoreline without touching, their shadows sliding over damp sand. Gulls screeched, salt spray needled their faces. She kept the photograph tucked inside her coat, warm-proof against the chill unraveling her nerves. At jagged rocks quilted in weed, they stopped, surf booming like artillery. She had promised herself that quiet would be simple, yet the hush between their breaths already felt hungrier than any city riot they had outrun. Adam crouched, letting seawater swirl around his boots. "I should have found you sooner," he said. She watched the bruised horizon. "I moved whenever the mail got my name right," she replied. A wave slapped the rock. He studied her elbow. Heat flared, then she pulled away. For a moment she wondered whether that warmth might burn the shame from their history, or whether it was only the fuse on a new disaster. He unfolded a worn clipping. One red-ringed line read, "Files stolen in 2017 resurface." Her stomach tightened. "They still believe we kept a copy?" "A hen left this on a corpse," Adam said. "It named a woman by the sea." The gulls fell silent. Even the gulls, greedy for anything shiny, seemed to pause midair, as though waiting to see which of them would deny destiny first. Wind herded them home. Inside, Elena barely set the clipping down when a padded envelope arrived addressed only to Lenny. It held a silver USB and a scrap of motel paper. "Truth floats like salt. You cannot drown it." Her fingers trembled not at the threat implied, but at the intimacy of whoever knew exactly where to find her after so many false trails. Router unplugged. She opened the drive. Ledgers, calls, fresh dates evidence the route thrived. A video showed. A hen whispering, "If you watch, I failed." They hunt the journalist in England and the woman by the sea. The screen reflected her widening eyes. The cottage felt suddenly smaller. Walls bending inward under the weight of names whispered through static. Of cities that still burned in their absence, she texted, "Need you." Seconds later, he stood in rainlight on her porch. At the table, they scrolled the files. "We dump everything at once," he said. "Make us impossible to erase." Fear and relief braided in her pulse. She agreed. Outside thunder rolled, a percussion that matched her heart as new consent formed, the kind written in lightning rather than ink. A knock. Nora, silver-streaked, new renter of the Slope bungalow, inviting them to stew tomorrow. Her eyes lingered on the laptop too long. After she left, Adam said, "Odd timing." Elena's skin prickled. The aroma of damp earth clung to the threshold after she left, as if caution itself had a scent and chose to linger behind their visitor dot near midnight. Elena glimpsed the hooded cyclist entering Nora's porch. Nora looked up, meeting Elena's stare before killing the light. "We leave at dawn," Adam decided, tucking the drive into his boot. Somewhere beyond the headland, a lighthouse horn moaned, low and sorrowful, a reminder that every refuge was also a warning wrapped in fog. Packed passports and the untouched wine. Pre-dawn mist blurred the lane. Nora's Volvo waited. "Roadworks ahead," she chirped. "Take the cliff detour." Her car followed as they obeyed, headlights glued like a second spine. Elena felt the scrutiny like a wire drawn tight between exhaust pipes, vibrating with questions none of them would say aloud. The detour narrowed to cracked asphalt suspended above roaring black water. Adam killed his lights and swung onto a maintenance track by an abandoned lighthouse. The Volvo shot past. They skidded to a halt beside a rustic gate and ran through rain smelling of iron. Old paint peeled from directional signs, pointing everywhere and nowhere. She wondered if that was what survival finally looked like. Inside, spiral stairs stripped with moss. The lantern room held a dusty Coast Guard console. A lone green light blinked. Adam jacked in his laptop. Elena braced a cabinet against the hatch. The upload bar began to creep. Modem tones chirped out of the machine like cicadas. Waking in high summer, fragile but insistent proof that someone, somewhere would soon receive their pulse. Boots thundered below. Return the drive, a voice demanded. 90%? 95. Elena handed Adam a flare gun. The hatch burst. Red fire blinded masked men. She hit send. One attacker lunged, she swung a wrench, dropping him. The second stumbled in sulfur smoke. She tasted copper on her tongue, uncertain if it came from fear or the memory of distant tear gas drifting through. Anchoress Street stopped. Blue strobes flashed outside. Nora appeared, pistol raised but friendly. 5 minutes before. More arrive, she said. Through a hidden stair and tunnel, she led them to a cove where a small boat waited. Ihan was my nephew. Finish it and live, she whispered. Her eyes, bright with loss, made Elena ache in places she had numbed. Courage, she realized, could be inherited like a blood-stained heirloom. They pushed off into fog. Elena shook. With terror and wild elation, Adam steered toward open sea, dawn bleeding pale rose. She reached for his hand. He held tight, the engine throbbing like a second heartbeat. Spray feathered their faces. It felt not like flight, but baptism. The ocean ordaining them witnesses instead of fugitives. A satellite ping lit the laptop, headlines already blasting their names. Files mirrored across the web faster than sensors could blink. Elena laughed. Salty and shaky, it's everywhere. Adam squeezed her fingers. We're untouchable, at least for today. She watched the horizon, daring to imagine unpacking at last. Against the brightening sky, the wake behind their boat shone silver, a signature nowhere on any passport. Still, as the coast dissolved into a watercolor blur behind them, Elena understood that exposure brought only one day of safety, and that every sunrise from here onward would demand a fresh oath to resist the thick, relentless gravity of silence and gnawing doubt. Fog swallowed the cliff road, wrapping the fleeing hatchback in wet white. Elena tasted metal panic and salt wile. Waves unseen below slammed the rocks. In the mirror, two stubborn headlights pressed closer whenever the pavement straightened. Adam downshifted, forcing the engine into a scream. Gravel pinned off metal. A derelict lane veered toward a dark lighthouse. He jerked the wheel. The car fishtailed, then bumped onto the ruts. They stopped by a rusted gate. Elena grabbed the satchel with the encrypted drive, and both ran through gusts that smelled of kelp. From the main road came screeching brakes. No time. Inside, the lighthouse stood cold and hollow. A spiral stair rose into shadow. Their steps rang like alarms. At the top, the lantern room waited, windows broken, machinery gutted, but one Coast Guard console pulsed green. Adam hacked a cable in, laptop humming, signals alive. Elena dragged a fallen beam across the hatch, then copied the evidence bundle ledgers, transcripts, names into a single file. She attached a brief note and set it to blast every major outlet and a leak server. The progress bar crawled. 90% boots pounded the stair. Elena found an old flare gun, cracked it open. 1 round. The hatch shook. 96. Hand. Over the drive, a man called. Voice calm. 90-9. The door burst. She fired. Scarlet light filled the room, blinding 2 masked men. She swung an iron wrench, clipping one. Adam shoved the other aside, hit send. Upload complete. A third figure appeared. Nora, their new neighbor, pistol leveled. Out, she ordered. The intruders retreated, stumbling down the stairs. Nora entered, gaze on the laptop's glowing confirmation. Good. Khalid can rest now. Khalid? Elena asked. My nephew, Nora said, jaw tight. He died smuggling that drive. I needed journalists who would finish it. Sirens wailed outside. More will come, Nora warned. She led them to a hidden service stair, then through a dripping tunnel to a cove. An inflatable boat waited, engine idling, supplies packed, coordinates for Cork. Contact named O'Shea, she said, pressing a laminated sheet into Elena's hand. Stay off radar 2 days. The leak will spread by then. Adam gripped her arm. Come with us. She shook her head. Visibility is my weapon tonight. Footsteps echoed behind. Nora turned back toward them, vanishing into flashing blue. The boat slid into gray swells. Spray chilled Elena's face, but inside she burned with fierce relief. On the laptop, headlines bloomed. Exposed. New files link offshore money to ministers. Their names trended. She laughed, shaky. They can't bury it. If they bury us, the truth stands, Adam said. Dawn rose across the water. He cut the motor, their craft drifting while the lighthouse shrank behind. She faced him. Exhaustion hardened his eyes, but hope flickered there too. She leaned in, kissed him salt and fear and long-deferred promise. When they parted, she found herself breathing easier. They restarted the engine, steering west. Sirens faded. Only the tide remained. Elena opened a weatherproof bag, lifted the bottle of wine she had saved for a victory she once doubted. She poured 2 tin cups. To Khalid, she said. To weightless truth, Adam answered. They drank, warmth blooming in the cold dawn. They kept the motor low to conserve fuel, hugging swells that rolled like sleeping giants under the hull. A frigid breeze lifted strands of Elena's hair. She tucked them beneath her hood and watched. Seabirds wheel lazy circles, witnesses to history rewriting itself below. Adam set the autopilot, then crouched beside her on the narrow bench. When we land, we disappear, he said. No more half-lives. How? She asked. I have papers cached with O'Shea. New names, clean numbers, a cottage in Chile or maybe Iceland. We choose warmth or cold, just not silence. Elena, imagine both horizons, green fjords echoing with gull cries, or desert coasts where pelicans skimmed copper water. Each vision felt impossibly gentle compared with gunmetal mornings in Ankara. I want a place where people knock to borrow sugar, she said. Adam smiled, wary. We'll buy a door painted blue, the color of calm. She had not dared to picture future seasons' autumn leaves, a grocery list, the scent of bread cooling on a sill. The normality felt illicit. The sun rose fully, turning slate into hammered silver. Far behind, a helicopter's thrum emerged, but veered inland. Maybe for them, maybe not. She swallowed dread. They'll hunt us hard. Hunters need shadows, he replied. We'll stay in daylight. Teach workshops, plant tomatoes right under our chosen names. He reached for her hand, squeezing once. Rough calluses from long ago grounded her. She turned his palm upward, traced the faint scar crossing his lifeline, earned when he shielded her from flying glass during a newsroom raid. You saved me then, she whispered, and every sunrise. Senses asked me why I let you go afterward. Emotion throbbed between them with the boat's pulse, steady. She lifted their joined hands, kissed his knuckles, felt him shiver. No more words seemed necessary. The wind spoke in their place. Mid-morning mist lifted, revealing a pale horizon, distant land. The hope of harbor smelled like diesel and salt, and something simpler, survival molding itself into an afternoon. Somewhere on that shore, coffee steamed. On a counter, and no one knew their faces yet. Elena tightened her grip on the railing and held one clear thought. Rebirth rarely arrives as a trumpet blast. Sometimes it glides on a patched life vest and tin cups of wine. She inhaled, savoring its quiet promise.